Good morning from the central part of the US. I'm Laura Donnelly, founder of the Healing Path Conversation Series and Dancing with Ease Body Brain Balance. People hire me to teach them to move out of pain and into healing. These conversations that have been going on since June 2020 with friends and colleagues offer an array of perspectives on healing. The things we have in common include the concept that healing begins inside of ourselves with the decision to heal, and then it expands outward from there. My guest today is Joseph, and because I live in Kansas, I have flat vowels. But I think, and he'll fix it if I goof, Carrabis is his last name. And he's going to talk to us about how he came to understand in his life that his goal is the journey and that the prize is the path. Let's welcome Joseph.
Hi, everybody.
So, did I say your name right? I live in Kansas. We have flat vowels.
Much like the land itself. Um,
Yes.
I pronounce it Carrabis, but you know, I'm not locked into one way or other. I've studied so many different languages. I'm always fascinated by how my name comes out, in different languages. So, wow, that was a good one. Could you say that again? How did you make that sound? You
I
know?
know. It's funny. I was in Italy and the people I was working with, they go, "Why didn't you tell us you were Italian?" And I said, "Because I'm Irish?" No, no, Donnelly is an Italian name. And I was like, okay,
Yep.
it's
Yes.
very funny. So, if you want to share a little bit, you have a hugely diverse background, which is always fascinating to me. And I think that it is part of what allowed you to form your philosophy.
Uh, Definitely. Um, I'm always intrigued by people who have basically one thing they do their entire life. They've got to be really good at it to be able to do it that long and not, to me, go a little bit bonkers. Um, I've done a lot of things in my life, uh, but only to some people's standards. There are others who've done a lot more than I have, um, and there are others who have done not quite as much as I have. I don't really remember making conscious decisions. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. What's this? What's that? Ooh. Until probably I was in my late 20s, early 30s. Um, Prior to that, I was my parents' child. I was my sister's brother. I was my teacher's student. Teachers there in the term of high school and then in college. Um, I was my future wife's boyfriend. I had all these roles that society just kind of gives us, no matter what culture we're from. We at first recognize who we are by who we are in relation to others, and then at a certain point, we say, "Who am I? Who am I? I. Who is this me that I see in the mirror, so to speak?" And as I say, it was my late 20s, early 30s where I had a reawakening, if you will, or an awakening, and said, "These things really fascinate me. I will study them." And I didn't want to study one or two because one of the things I had learned was everything is kind of mixed together. You can't do one without the other. One of my teachers, meaning beyond high school and college, one of the people I studied with after I had my reawakening, said to me, "If you want to learn anything, you must learn everything." And, uh, you know, um, Stephen Hawking has this great line: if you want to make an apple pie from scratch, you have to first create the universe. So, you know, I studied quantum mechanics, I studied gravitational physics, I studied Italian cooking, I studied French, I studied, take your pick. I studied piano, I studied clarinet. And that's, at some point I just said, wow, it's been one heck of a ride. This is great. You know, I'm probably babbling. I apologize to you and your audience.
No, no, it's if for me, you could have been describing what I did, just different events. And uh, I probably in my 40s or something, I read something that said that because of the speed with which the world is changing, that fewer and fewer people would be able to get a job, join a company, and stay with that company because the companies kept changing and
Hmm.
the what the companies produced changed, and it's changing so fast. And I was kind of like, whew, because I thought I was doing it wrong. Because I couldn't find anything that was interesting enough for me to just stay with for 20, 30 years, you know. And instead, I was following some path, and it sounds like you were following a path also. And the things come together, from down the road. In the beginnings, as you start, maybe hard to tell how these relate. But now, if you look back, you can say, this piece gave me an understanding of this, and this piece gave me an understanding of that, and I've put them together this way. And how many people did you meet doing all these different things?
Uh, I couldn't honestly keep count, but I've met you. Um, that line you said, the statement you made about how the universe, how life at a certain point, okay, this over here, that over there. Again, another one of my teachers um, had this thing about the universe's idea of your life is actually a straight line. And I went, wow, considering where I've been in my travels. She said, well, think of it this way. You live in New Hampshire. I live in uh, Utah. So to get here, you probably had to go to an airport to, you had to take at least one or two puddle jumpers to get here. And then you had to drive for a number of hours and blah, blah, blah. So that was a pretty bouncy thing. I said, yeah. She said, yeah, but if you're living on the moon, that's maybe one line and then another line on the US. And I went, yeah. And she said, and if you're on Mars, that's probably one tiny little, almost a dot on the face of the earth. I went, yeah. So she said, it's all a matter of perspective. You know, it's a straight line. You just don't realize how big, how wide that line is. Ooh, that's a good one. That was like, let me take a note. Let me make notes.
Yeah, I had what something you reminded me of was one of my teachers who's a taught choreography. And when I started, I was dancing and I wanted to be in other people's pieces. And then I discovered dance composition, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. And so I asked her, I said, how do I become a good choreographer? And she said, well, you work with a lot of people. And I'm like, you mean I don't get in a company? She said, yeah, you can get in a company, but don't stay with anybody more than 3 years. And I was looking kind of probably like, because my dream had been to get in a company, and the choreographer would make work for me and challenge me. And I had an idea. Wasn't a great idea, but it was an idea. And she said to me, if you stay with somebody longer than 3 years, you won't be able to get their movement style out of your body for another year and a half or more. But what you want is to experience all these different things through your body so that when you go to make your own work, you have a huge foundation. So I have the feeling that your not straight line journey gave you quite a good foundation for your approach to life.
I would agree. Yes. Yes. It's interesting. Your teacher, your coach, who said, "Don't stay with anybody for more than 3 years." Um, there have been people I am studying with and have studied with. I have been with them for many years. And in some cases, there was an introductory period, which was several months. Uh, None of them ever quite lasted a year, the introductory period. But then it would be come back, come back, come back, big cycles. And one of my one of my teachers, um, she said to me after we had met and worked together for about excuse me, about a month, I guess it was a month and a half. She said, "Okay, now you're ready. Come back to me in 2 years and tell me what you've studied." And okay, all right. I went away and came back to her, and she said, "Okay, tell me what's been going on." And I said, "Here's what I've learned." She said, "No, no, I don't care what you've learned. I want to know what you studied." And I realized there's a vast difference between what I've studied and what did I get from it.
Ah,
What part of it came was did I become? The great Native American line, "I become a part of it." Or for those of us who have read science fiction, Stranger in a Strange Land, Valentine Michael Smith, who says, "I grokked." And he literally becomes that thing so he can understand it fully. Um, I don't know how in today's world, and I'm not slighting today's world. I merely offer that it is challenging for me to be with something, as we said about jobs, for a year, 2 years, and really come to feel I have become competent in it. I know people, I have nephews who every year and a half, every 2 years. Frankly, I couldn't keep my resume up that quick. But that's what they do, and they're quite happy and quite comfortable. Um, and it is a very different world that I grew up in. That's why I have gray hair, not much of it, but I do. So, yeehaw.
how did you make your decision to go from thing to thing? Do you know? Was it intuitive? Was it intellectual? Was it
I was told more often than not, I would be studying with someone, and this habit actually started back in my college days. I went to college. I've said this so many times, so many people. I went to college 3 times and it never stuck. Never got a degree. At one point, one of my professors said, "You have enough credits to get a degree." Really? I said, "Yeah, get a degree and get out of here." Okay, fine. But I knew what I wanted to study, or I knew what I wanted to learn. And at the time that I was doing this, there was no one institution that had this as a tract. Here you go, take this and this. So I literally had to, who is really good at this? And this was back in the 70s and early 80s. So I'm okay, go to the library. Who's published in this field? Who's published a lot in this field? Okay. So I would see, and I would find the one that was closest. I would go in. Here's who I am. Here's what I want to learn. I don't care about a college credit. I'll sit in the back of your class and I'll be quiet. Sure. Okay. You go to a really large university that's 500 people, so they don't even notice you're there. So okay, I went, and at a certain point, I would walk up to the professor and say to her or him, you said and you stated and I read, and this, I need help with this. And a lot of sometimes they would go, get out, you're not paying a tuition, get out of here. Other times, more often than not, they would say, who are you again? How did you come up with this? And again, because of the era we were in, what kind of drugs were you taking? So, so I would work with them, and they would say, you know who you need to talk with now? You need to talk with Dr. Vorka. Okay, you need to talk with Dr. Paula. Okay, you need to talk with, you need to talk with. And over the course of time, I literally built up a portfolio. I am hiking all over the US and Canada, everywhere else, with a pack on my back, hiking boots, and a staff, because it wasn't always safe. A lot of times, and I didn't want to carry a weapon, so I carried a staff. Stay away from me. Um, and again, it was so different because truck drivers, transcontinental drivers, they'd stop. Where you headed? You know, sure. If you're going there, yeah, you don't mind helping me unload when we get there. No, that's cool. You're driving me 300 miles. Yeah, sure, I'll help you unload. Um, so the people I studied with would say, here, 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 here. And I would show up smelling from the road more often than not. If I could get into a dorm, I would take a shower before I walked into a class or into their office. And then it became, yep, yeah, yeah. He told me you were coming. She told me you were coming. Yes, yes, yes. And the next step was, I'm writing, because there was no email. I'm writing you a note. I'm writing you a letter. Take this and go to McGill. Go to University of Colorado. Go to University of New Brunswick. Go to, um, and give this to. And I'll give them a call. Let them know you're coming. When will you be there? Well, it's 2,000 miles away. Tomorrow afternoon. I don't know. I don't have a clue. And that would be it. And it was glorious. I have to tell you, it was glorious because I worked with some of the most amazing, brightest minds on the planet, brightest people, not just minds, people who were spiritual masters, who were physical masters, who had so disciplined their body that you're a dancer, simple movement brought them such joy. And they would flow. Their movement was like water contained. You know what I mean? Just watching them walk across a room and you're like, I didn't know a person could move like that. You know, I had the opportunity to spend time with a major sports figure, giant of a man. I mean, just huge fellow. And I remember my first impression of him, because he was walking with a bunch of other people. My first impression was his motion is so smooth compared to everyone else's. Much like when I was in the presence of dancers, high level dancers, not like me, I'm on the floor, look at me, I'm jamming here, but really good dancers, they have a kinesthetic quality that the rest of us can only aspire to. The level of training, of body training you have gone through, you're like a kung fu master of dancing, right? And I just made it a point, because of the people I was working with: watch, listen, pay attention, do, believe, hope. And they would say to me, go here, go there, go there, go over there. You need to go talk to him. You need to go talk to her. You need to go see them, you know. So
So, did you get a lot of, shall we say, flack from your parents or
I
people you
wasn't
knew
I
that for doing this? I mean, to me, it makes perfect sense, right?
Yeah,
The next person shows up, and the next person shows up, and But it takes a lot of courage to try. I know it doesn't seem like it, does it, from the inside? To trust that, mm, I don't know, to trust the journey. How about that? To trust the
Yeah.
journey.
I'm it's kinda like Scarlett O'Hara. I've always trusted in the kindness of strangers. Um, I, it's funny the number of people who have said to me, "You're one of the most you're one of the bravest people I've ever met." And I go, "Me? What are you, crazy? I'm a coward. What are you, nuts?" And even my wife, partner and princess, Susan, we've been together 44 years, and she'll even say, "Oh yeah, yeah, you don't hesitate." Really? Yeah, I've seen you stare down people with guns. When? You didn't even realize you had a gun? What's wrong with you? I I I was just talking with him. Um, but flack from my parents. I had stopped having communication with my parents in my last years of high school, actually. Um, when I was 15, I met a gentleman because that's basically when I began questing without realizing what I was doing. I met a gentleman at the church I was attending, and being very honest, I started to attend that church because I was dating a girl who went to that church. So there you go. There's your reason for buying into a faith. Anyway, um, because I was dating her and that relationship, she was an amazingly intelligent young lady, and she said, "I don't want to see you anymore." She was that smart. Um, but because of her, I met him. Because of him, I met them, and because of them, it took a few years going through college. I said, "No, I'm not going to learn this way. I need to learn my way." So, there you go. That's that straight line, the universe's idea of a straight line. Ba-ding, ba-dam, boom. You feel like a billiard ball after a while. Boom, ah, boom, boom. Um, but I don't think of myself as courageous. I did get flack. You remember I mentioned earlier about some of the professors who are you? What are you doing? There were a number of professors, again, we're going back into the 70s when, you know, competition was very severe, very, very intense, who, would berate me in class because I didn't study the way they needed me to,
Mm.
or I would take a class 2 and 3 times the same class because I didn't quite get that one part. And there was one professor in front of class who, and I am not kidding, said, "You didn't get it last year. You're not going to get this year. Why don't you just drop this class so the other students can get things done?" And I was like, wow. Um, and I went to the dean of the department, and they said, "Well, he does tend to shoot from the hip." And I said, "Yeah, but don't wound me in the process. He wants to shoot his own foot off. That's fine." Anyway, one of the places I went to for actual coursework, and I started taking other courses which fascinated me. And the dean of that college that I was in said, "When are you going to grow up and decide what you want to do with your life?" And I said, "Well, I believe I have grown up and I have decided what I want to do with my life, and this is what I'm doing." So he invited me to leave, and I went, "Okay, fine." But courageous, um, I was doing what I had to do. I was doing what had to be done. I guess another way to say it, and let me know if you want me to stop babbling here. Another way to say it is I have always believed there was a purpose in my life. Sometimes that purpose is making a really good pizza for my friends when they come over to visit. Sometimes the purpose in my life is back many, many years in the 80s, um, I got involved in hospice work. We had no idea what HIV was. We had no real idea what AIDS was. There was no cure. So I would go and this person's got a couple of days left. Let me go and just hold their hand and talk with them. And that was the purpose I had. Now I'm a full time author who occasionally will teach and have a lot of fun talking with people. And now that's my purpose. Um, and one purpose fulfills another. One purpose brings to the other, helps complete the other. Uh, People tell me, I'm not trying to sell my books, but people tell me in my books, they say that's an amazing the way you bring everything together. And I'm just thinking, well, it's you know, I write autobiography. It's just basically the past 68 years of my life. What part did you like? Let me do it again. So anyway,
Well,
ta-da!
no, here's the thing. Part of what happens with this conversation series, I mean, like people say to me, "Well, are you monetizing your podcast?" And I'm like, "What? What do you mean?" You know, and I'm like, I want people to meet people because we learn from other people. We learn from our experiences with other people. Probably that one teacher, you learned something about how you never wanted to treat another human in your life. Yeah, that was a harsh lesson. And, maybe it cost whatever it cost for 3 credit hours back then, but it changed you.
Hmm.
And because of your choice about how you were going to deal with that information, you chose to have it change you in a positive way. This is one of the reasons I think probably people enjoy your autobiographical books is because they learn from your interactions, from what you share. They learn, oh, there's another way to interpret this event. There's a way to do something with this kind of an event in my life that I never saw before. And when I work with people, sometimes I say we are doing things and we often don't know why. Why did I take this train and not that train? And then you're sitting beside somebody you would never have met otherwise. And maybe all the purpose, like you said, sitting and holding somebody's hand, maybe all your purpose was to sit by that person and be kind that day, and that maybe changes their life in a way you don't understand.
Hmm.
But to trust that purpose and to trust the thing that leads you to the next step and the next step. Why don't you share a little bit about your current book? Because that was your next step, right? Out of other books and into this book.
um, well, I think you mean that think you do.
Yes.
Uh, and that book came about the last company that my wife and I created and was successful enough to allow me to do this these days. Um, we dealt we put together neuroscience, anthropology, linguistics, a whole bunch of different fields um, to come up with solutions for companies on how to communicate better. And we worked with governments, we worked with politicians, we were just a lot of people and institutions made use of us. We were used. so uh, one group in California who learned about my work said, "Would you be willing to write a blog post, a weekly blog post about what you're doing?" And frankly, what I was doing was based on stuff I'd already done. Yeah, okay. But how would you like to have a blog post on what I'm learning, what I'm studying now, and what I'm discovering now? So, yeah, sure. Okay, fine. So each week I produced a blog post. The title of the blog was That Think You Do. And each week there'd be something about some of my research. And it came down to, do you have trouble taking control of your life? Here's what a lot of people have said about it over the ages. Here's what we're just discovering. If you actually do this, your brain is affected this way and releases hormones into your body. And this changes your body, which changes your mood because it changes your emotions, because mind and body and spirit, and emotions, they're all kind of linked together. And this one thing that you can do 10 seconds at a time, 2 or 3 times a day, takes you longer to breathe than 10 seconds. But if you do this one thing for 10 seconds, right before every meal, right before you go to bed, maybe when you wake up, it'll change your day. And we would get emails, people would comment on the blog. Um, I'm talking people from all walks of life. We had corporate leaders down to people working in ditches would comment or email me or find me on LinkedIn, uh, whatever. Wow, that was really, yeah, I did what you said. Wow, that was really amazing. Okay, well, that went from 2008 to 2016. And my wife and I had it with corporate life. We said, we're done. So we let go of the company. Um, and I never thought more about that blog post. I still kept on doing the reading in the fields because it did interest me. It does interest me. Plus, it's good stuff for the types of novels that I write. And I got with a new publishing house. An editor said, "Let me see your stuff." She starts looking through my entire portfolio. She finds these and she goes, "Wow, these are really fascinating. How many of these do you have?" I said, 700. I have no clue. She said, "Let me see them all." Here you go. And she was, "Wow, this is a book." Yes, it is. So there you go. There was a book. She came up with the book idea, and I said, "I will I will do whatever you need done, but you're going to have to put this together because this is not what I'm doing anymore." She said, "Okay, fine." That book came out in January, February, and I was really shocked at the feedback and the response and the comments. So, of course, now the publisher's like, "Let's do volume 2 through 17." I said, "Wait a minute. No, hang on." you know, but okay, fine. We're going to do volume 2 at some point. You need it today? No, no. Tomorrow would be good. Thank you. Um, but it worked out very nicely. The book's gotten great reviews. Everyone else can get a copy and put more reviews. Love having reviews. Um, and there's been enough requests for it that I speak about that the subjects in the book, share techniques, share things, little how to if you get depressed or overwhelmed in the middle of the day, what's a quick solution? And this one really throws people. Have a glass of water. Chances are, in the middle of the day after lunch, your body is busy processing whatever you had for lunch, even if it's just a salad and a glass of water. Your body is busy processing all of your resources because this is how our biology is designed. Go into fuel. I must turn this into protein and build body back. So your body is busy doing that. It's draining energy, if you will, from your brain, and your result is have a glass of water. Chances are your stomach is consuming so much of your body's liquids to process this, you're dehydrated. Just have a glass of water. Keep a bottle of water handy. And wow, that really works. Good. Glad. Happy to do it for you. So,
It's
that has led to the other novels, all of which are available on Amazon and at your local booksellers.
and I
Um,
will put the links in the comments for these videos so people can find them.
Bless you, bless you, bless you.
No, this is the thing that, well, so several things you said are really important, and it's that your mood can change by what your body is doing. Your mood can change by what you're thinking. If your body is depleted, your brain doesn't have the energy
Hmm.
to actually to process. So, like,
Yeah,
to say this thought is worth engaging with. This thought should just pass down the stream. It's just not worth my time. But when we are in a depleted state, whether we're fatigued, from not getting enough sleep, which is a chronic thing in the world these days, or we have chronic pain, that's another one that depletes your total reserves. And and there's a lot that your thinking can do to change all of these things because they're all, as you said earlier, interwoven. And you said something else, but it reminded me of, how you do anything is how you do everything. So do you look at things with curiosity, or do you look at things that happen as a crisis, no matter what it is? You know, maybe you have wanted to move for a long time, and suddenly your neighborhood is being consumed for an airport or something. And instead of saying, "Oh, I have been wanting to move. Now is the time." You're like, "Oh my God, this is a disaster." And and see, just even when I said that, you can hear my voice change because my whole body is connected. And if I say, "Wow, I wonder where I'm going to land next." Same thing with your hitchhiking journey, which reminded me of how the world was, and the things I miss about how the world was. Uh, but that's okay. Everything changes. And I can be glad that I had those experiences. And I can be sad for other people growing up now who are going to not have those experiences, but I have no idea what experiences they're going to have instead. And my choice is to trust that they get the experiences they need, that you and I had the experiences we needed. I was at that time in the university when you paid for 12 or 15 credit hours, a flat amount of money, and
hmm
you could take as many courses as you could complete. So I took 19 to 21 every single semester at no extra charge. And so so I went like you did. Oh, this sounds interesting. I'm going to take this. I did semiotics. Nobody even knew what semiotics was when I was going to school.
yes.
And it didn't fit into my degree plan. See people, why are you taking that? Well, it sounded cool. And now a student who wants to do that kind of experimentation, they have to pay more and more and more for it, unless they go outside the traditional academic structure, which is what you did too. As you said, this structure doesn't work for my brain. Oh man. And like I did, I had many, many credits. And a teacher said to me, you could just graduate. You just need one science course and one math course, and you can have your bachelor's degree. And I'm like, ah. Well, I took the science course and I'm like, man, I should have been taking these all along because I took geology and I love
hmm
rocks. But I took algebra. It's always good at math in school, high school. And if I had taken this as a freshman, I would have been out of school so fast. It was not taught well. That oh, oh. I didn't go. I quit. I didn't go to a lecture. I didn't go to a study hall. After the first test, where I did all my homework right away at the beginning of the 2 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever, and then I showed up for the test, I had forgotten it. Ever after that, I did my homework 3 days before the test, got an A in the class, and I'm like, if I had started at 18 and I was paying, and this was, I said, how can they teach this way? And at the same time, I said, well, how fortunate that that didn't happen to me and that I got to pick the teachers like you did. This teacher is interesting. I'm going to work with this teacher. Do you think it's possible for young people to do that today? Maybe not through the university, but through individuals in the world to meet somebody, like say somebody could meet you and say, I would like to uh, read your book and talk to you about it and take a whole semester, talk about chapter by chapter and learn that
Uh,
way.
well, number one, if someone wants to do that, let me know. I'm very open to that. Um, and is it possible for young people today to take the path that I took? God, I hope not, because um, one of the things Susan and I often say to people is, I would never change any event of my life, but I would never want to relive my life. I've had moments of intense joy. I've had moments of intense sorrow, which have shaped me, if you will, to today. I believe that young people nowadays, more than anything else, they need to learn to trust themselves to know when it's safe to whatever, to stay here, to go there, to drink this, to eat that, to talk to this person, to meet that person. Um, I do not, my experience of young people today in our United States culture is that they are not being taught to know when they are safe. They are being taught, and I mean this actually very seriously, they are being taught to take risks. Risks are good, risks are necessary for growth. But I learned early on I will take a risk that's at the edge of my comfort level. I'm not going to literally leap off a mountaintop. I did have that happen once purely by accident. I fell off a mountain. Who would have thought it possible? But I will go at the edge of my comfort zone and then a little bit beyond. Okay, I can go back. I can still study, but and eventually this level of comfort becomes this level of comfort. And now, okay, I'm up here. I can go here, explore, and now up here. So I don't think they're being learned to recognize their own limits and boundaries. I think they're just being, let's go bang off the wall and see what happens. Let me drive my car or my motorcycle at 80 miles per hour in a city street that's congested. What the heck? I've seen it done in movies and on TV. It must be okay. It must be possible. We need to, if anything, and it's up to the young to decide this is something they want to learn. We need to teach them to be responsible to themselves, to appreciate themselves, to recognize their own boundaries and limits so they'll know what is safe for them and what is not. You mentioned a thing about um, teachers teaching and your time in college. And how did I find the people that I wanted to study with? I There's one quality I will say to everyone that I said yes, I want to learn from them. And that is that no matter what they were teaching, whether it was we're going to study catastrophe theory, we're going to study chaos theory, we're going to study sonoluminescence, we're going to study physics, we're going to study piano, we're going to study guitar, um, we're going to study taekwondo, anything. I sought the people who had joy in what they were doing. Not, and here's very specific, not boastful joy, the kind of childhood joy which is, wow, this is really neat. Come over here. Let me show you how to do it. This is amazing. This is great. And it's that joy because they are going to teach you how to have joy in this thing. They're not going to teach, some of the professors like the one I was mentioning who called me out in a class, the way to sum up him is I busted my butt studying this stuff and you're going to too now. You're going to do the exact same. You're going to suffer the way I did. A lot of authors when they're writing a book, you have to do a lot of research sometimes for a book, fiction or nonfiction. And you can always tell when an author basically non-consciously says, I had to suffer through this research and now so will you, because they'll have intense paragraphs
I
of pure exposition, mind numbing. And it's kind of like, would somebody please do something? Oh, where's the dialogue? Where's happening here? Where's the action? I suffered researching this and now so were you. But it's the people who, this is fun. I'm going to teach you how to have fun doing this. And I had math professors who knew I had some challenges. I did have learning challenges, or I guess we used to call them learning disabilities. Now we call them learning challenges. I basically, one of the first things I had to learn in my travels was how to learn to learn. I learned differently. My brain was literally wired differently. Back then, we didn't have the technology to know that. We didn't understand that. We just, you hook the guy up and it's, wow, that's a strange brain pattern. He must be screwed up. No, I just do it differently. Anyway, the people who found had real joy, look at me, clasping it, real joy. It was theirs in what they did. They taught you how to have joy in anything you did. They taught you how to love what you were doing and share that love. Whether you were teaching someone else, the next person, whether you were teaching them optics or quantum or gravitational physics or what, or mathematics or multidimensional calculus, they would teach you how to have joy in this and give that joy to the next person. So a lot of times if I'm playing guitar with someone and I notice they're having a difficulty, as my teachers did with me, they see that there's a challenge. How can I share what I do differently so you will understand it and be able to do it? Wow. Think about that. Please think about that. All your listeners, everyone paying attention here, or even if you're not paying attention, suddenly pay attention. How can, when someone is having a challenge with what you are offering, how can you adapt? Because that means you own what you do. That means you are what you do. If you are able, like that, to change what you do so that that person who can't do it can. You must do the same thing in dancing. People have difficulty in a certain movement. You teach how to move from pain to ease. How you must be able to see, especially people with, people with dancing ability, people with kinesthetic skills. You see a person, hmm, is that move giving you a bit of, you have a little bit, what is that? Well, I got a long, okay, let's do it differently. Let's do it this way. Really highly trained physical therapists, as an example, when they go to you and we're going to do this, we're going to ow, 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 ow. Okay. How about if we do this? How about if we relax this part of your body, and then I want you to concentrate on this muscle doing that. That's all I want you to do. Wow, yeah, I can do it. Good, good. And they have joy in what they do, and they want you to have joy in what you do, whether it's exactly what they do or not. Do what is best for you. Find joy. Find teachers who have joy. They will teach you how to have joy. And that's, now that you're making me think of it, that's what I did.
Well, and it's so, so important. And what you said too about, I think part of joy for me is curiosity,
Yes.
you know, and like with the physical therapist, how can I do this? Because I want to move my wrist this way, but how can I do this so it doesn't hurt? If I squeeze and I'm tense everywhere, my wrist isn't going to move. My voice is
Mhm.
going to squeak too. And if I, and so like with the student, how do they learn? They're not going to learn the way I learn. I know that, like, that your brain is different. And so your brain works a certain way and it goes a certain way. And nobody's going to think like you think. But by being joyful and happy in how you think, you can transmit that joy and they can have that spark that teaches them, oh, I need to do this to be able to do that. And as you said, working with dancers and bodies, what I learned was every body, personal physical body, can make the dance shape, but they don't make it the same way. So just like you talked about your physical therapist, how does this collection of bones and muscles make this shape? And when a student
Mhm.
learns that, because I was teaching in academic situations, then I'm like, how did you learn that? Because how you learn that is how you will learn everything. That
Mhm.
piece. And again, yeah, joy. Such joy when somebody
Yes.
lights up. And so
Yes.
we could probably talk
Yes.
all day long about thinking, about learning, about sharing. But I want to thank you so much for sharing your journey and sharing your time.
My
And
pleasure.
like I said, I will put the links for people to connect to you. And if they want to get your book, they can do that. And we'll hope that they write a
Yes.
review. And I
Yes.
will see you on LinkedIn, on the interwebs, which are like pretty much fun for meeting people and learning new things. So
Very good. Thank you so
thank you.
much.
Thank you and have a
My
wonderful day.
pleasure. You too. Toodles all.